Thank you to my channel members and Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also support me by buying a deck tech on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. More info in the video description. Hello everyone! I've been streaming on Twitch for a few months and I'm almost partner already, if you can believe it. Looking at 12 decks a week over the span of time has meant that I've gotten well over 200 decks under my belt directly from my audience for review. I wanted in this video to go over some of the trends and lessons I've seen come up again and again in these lists. To give this video a bit of structure, I'll try to discuss specific examples, whether that be a specific card or a deck I've reviewed on stream. The biggest loser on stream is Anger, far and away cut from the most decks. Now, Anger can be a good card, but it needs a specific home. A graveyard-focused deck that can easily mill or discard it, with a commander and or multiple cards in the 99 that care about haste, whether due to needing to attack right away or having tap abilities, with a high enough mountain count, so probably not a 3 color or more deck, unless the mana base is skewed accordingly. A lot has to go right for Anger to be a good card. I think the major lesson to come from Anger is that you really have to analyze if your deck supports all aspects of a card. It's easy enough to have 1 or 2 of those 3 requirements for Anger to be true, so you might add it to your deck since it's a popular card, but the truth is that you need all 3 pillars in order for it to actually shine brighter than something like an Arena or Glory, or even a Lightning Greaves. I think the biggest reason I cite for most of my cuts on stream for decks that people are unsatisfied with is card quality. In a Master of Keys deck I reviewed on stream, someone built it around trying to maintain the monarchy and win with the courts with a controlling pillow fort plan. I mean this genuinely. I am envious of this deck, and I'm impressed with the initial construction, not including Ghostly Prison or Propaganda, which I'm sure many people would be jamming in here as picks 1 and 2. As a quick aside, the reason why these cards are rather lackluster in my experience is that they're very meta dependent. They can be outright broken at tables with a ton of token players, but the moment you're met with a giant trampler or flyer, that thing will get through if its controller really wants it to. Even less effort is required for burn, combo, or drain decks that can just kill you over the top without needing to use combat. Besides, there's a slew of better pillow fort options in these colors that are a lot more generalized, like for instance, Solitary Confinement, which isn't in the initial deck despite it being a killer way to maintain the Monarch. It's also able to be maintained forever with the help of the commander and something like Omen of the Sea. Add in a mill engine like Ripples of Undeath and a counter backup and you got yourself a hard lock. Anyway, card quality. The reason why this deck is a perfect example of this was due to the number of inclusions I considered subpar in the list that on the surface seemed pretty serviceable. Like, by no means are Funeral Rites, Dire Sight, Notion Rain, and Deranged Assistant stone cold unplayable. They are, however, outclassed by the natural self-mill of the commander, as well as the self-sacrificing enchantments that you can cast into your Enchantress triggers, and then sacrifice, such as Case of the Stashed Skeleton or the Creation of Avacyn. The best card in the deck is Court of Cunning, so why not tutor for it? Perplex and Idyllic Tutor were natural additions over these mill-based options, allowing the deck to find its best play with more regularity. Both could also fetch the previously mentioned Solitary Confinement as well. Tutors like this are cards I frequently end up recommending for decks landing themselves in bracket 3. A lot of the problems people have with their lists come down to feeling frustrated with a deck's consistency. They built the deck around a specific game plan or interaction, and then they just have non-games because they can't find their pieces. My main question is, if you really have a game plan you enjoy and you want to enable it, why don't you just grab it? Now, of course, tutors can be boring if you let them be. Demonic Tutor turning into an infinite combo early isn't my style of play, but I feel like the perception that tutors are only useful like this are just terribly incorrect. Truth is, there's a ton of archetype-specific tutors that are far more narrow and beg to be built around. Do you have a small Hate Bears deck? Imperial Recruiter and Recruiter the Guard can help get the silver bullet you need, or turn into an Ender with a Flicker enabler like Felia or Soul Herder. In a deck like Jasath, or Sigarda Font of Blessings, that cares about the top deck, a Congregation at Dawn works wonders. In that Sigarda example, an Eternal Witness in that pile lets you pick it back up from your graveyard and run it back. In a heavy self-mill deck, Analyze the Pollen and Traverse the Uvenwald are both practically lands due to their low cost to land cycle, but in the mid to late game, they can turn into your favorite explosive play. All the time, I hear players afraid to run tutors in their deck because of stigma, but legitimately, there's no better way to increase the fun of your 99 than just finding the cards you actually want to play with more regularity. Sometimes your commander isn't the only card you want access to every game. Okay. Enough with the court-mandated 3/3 elk tutor propaganda, but it does segue me into the next lesson I learned looking at people's deck lists. I wish I had a counter for how often people were running cards or combos they didn't like, but just jammed in there anyway for power reasons, because it happens so frequently. The number one culprit, if you can believe it, is the Blood Bond combo. Sometimes I'll even find it in a deck with no other life gain theme going on. It literally happened last week with a Nazgul Stormy Witch King Sky Scourge brew. The way that the tutor talk segues into this one is that tutors exacerbate your least favorite aspects of your deck. If you have a deck packing a combo or play you don't like, but run it for power and feel the need to tutor for it, of course running tutors is going to feel bad. What I often advise to these people is that they should just cut the plays they don't like. We're here in Commander to have fun. You're allowed to not run the most optimal choice in your deck. In the case of Blood Bond, life gain decks in black have no shortage of ways to try and convert life gain into a win with the help of Veto, Grey Merchant, Exsanguinate, and Wound Reflection. I have a lot of these effects in my Iara First of Locthwain Mono Black Drain deck, which wins a ton, yet still is 100% combo free. What I'm trying to ask you here is to really analyze your deck that you feel isn't working and question, do I actually like the deck's main play pattern? Is there a better way to threaten wins for my deck? Chances are, the answer is yes. It just takes some digging to find it. Since we're on the topic of wins in Commander, the last topic I wanted to address was how frequently I run into decks that just spin the wheels but never close. Maulhound calls this word cloud disease in the decks he reviews, and I've found it to be a pretty apt descriptor of what's going on here. I just recently had a perfect example of this. A deck running the Doctor and Companion pair of the second Doctor and Visitor Turlo. This was an admittedly pretty sweet Esper Draw Punisher deck that was trying to clone the Visitor and give each opponent one. However, it ran cards like Thought Vessel, which is a fine ramp spell, but I had a feeling it was being run mostly for the Reliquary Tower effect, which on top of being inherently win more is just also an effect on one of the commanders. Not saying redundancy isn't good, but it's just not that good of an effect to start out with outside of Hand Size Matters decks, which this very much is not doing. The other jarring additions here were Sphinx's Tutelage and Underworld Dreams, both of which were meant to combo with the Peer into the Abyss in the list, but were just far too bad by their lonesome and didn't really work with the desired plan A of cloning Turlo. And Irenicus's Vile Duplication, which is a clone, but it only works on your own stuff. And this deck really wasn't in the market of keeping its own Turlo at all. All of these were examples of this word cloud problem. On the surface, they appeared to work with the Draw Matters theme of the deck, but in actuality, they blinded the deck builder from the synergy that different effects could have with the deck. The additions that replaced these was Desynchronize, which normally is very bad in my mind, but here not bouncing legendaries is actually an upside since it wouldn't bounce opponents' Turlos, and they now have a bigger hand while still being drained. Speaking of bigger hands, Archon of Emeria and Aethersworn Canonist were added as well. Rule of Law effects probably wouldn't be your first thought for this deck. I mean, they don't mention drawing cards anywhere on them like Sphinx's Tutelage does, but what they do well is keep cards in players' hands. When you draw 2-3 cards a turn but can only play one, it keeps lower curve decks in check where they normally run this Howling Mine style of play over with insane tempo. Overall, there's a ton that can go wrong with the Commander deck, and I hope that this video helped expose what irks you about that problematic deck that you've been trying to fix. Tell me, have you succumbed to word cloud disease before? Did you once used to hate tutors? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time,